Are you a businesswoman who is finding it challenging to get your ideas across and make a point? Welcome to Speakers Who Get Results with Elizabeth Bachman, a podcast dedicated to helping women get the visibility they want, whether making a speech or talking in a meeting. Every week, get valuable lessons from Elizabeth or learn from her roundtable conversations with experts and speakers on how to make a difference, not just a point. On to the show with your host, Elizabeth Bachman.
Hello, and welcome to Speakers Who Get Results. I'm Elizabeth Bachman, your host, and this is the podcast where I interview experts from around the world on subjects such as communication, presentation skills, diversity, leadership, and so much more. Today, we are featuring my wonderful friend Imelda Alejandrino, who is a Filipina, because we're recording this for Asian American Pacific Islander Month. And so I want to feature some of my friends who are experts who also come from Asian American and Pacific Islander backgrounds. Imelda Alejandrino is the CEO of AP42. She is a proven digital strategist and creative director with over 25 years of results-driven success. As the chief evangelist behind a top-performing digital team, Imelda combines creative quality, strategic focus, and technology expertise to deliver world-class communications. He has a proven track record of leading innovative, creative efforts across all surfaces and channels, including digital, artificial reality, virtual reality, immersive virtual reality, film, retail, packaging, and events. Imelda has worked with major brands such as Accenture, Meta, that's the former Facebook, General Motors, Southern California Edison, Chevron, Pacific Gas and Electric, and Chase Bank. She's a highly strategic thinker and a leader in breakthrough creative initiatives. Her expertise is showcased in Augie, which is an immersive virtual reality event platform launched in 2020. Augie has been successfully used for international events such as for Accenture and national events such as for General Motors. With her deep understanding of the Metaverse, Imelda is poised to drive continued success in this dynamic and evolving landscape. I've known Imelda for several years, and I am in awe of her creativity and her leadership and the things she knows. So I know that you'll learn a lot. I learned a lot in this interview. On to the interview featuring Imelda Alejandrino. Imelda Alejandrino, my friend, I'm so happy that I finally got you onto Speakers Who Get Results. Welcome.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you, Elizabeth, for inviting me.
Well, we've known each other for quite some time, and I've asked you before, and then the timing didn't work out, whatever. So you're doing so many really cool things that I'm glad that I finally got you. Before we get started on explaining to me the tech that I don't understand, please tell me, who would be your dream interview? If you were to be on stage with someone who's not necessarily with us anymore, what would your dream interview be? And what would you say, and who should be listening?
Oh my goodness. I have a ton of people I wish I could interview. But let's see. Gosh, who could that be? I have so many. You know what? This may sound very interesting,
Uh-huh.
but I would interview my mother.
Perfect. A lot of people do
I would interview her because she was around for at least 90 years. So she has seen the transformation of how we lived. And so she's a very simple woman, right? Very, very, very smart. And I think she would be astounded by the progress that we made. I recall bringing home the first time, the first mobile phone,
Mm-hmm.
and she took it and used it like it was a walkie-talkie. I thought that was
Uh-huh.
so cute. Mom, it's a phone.
My mom did
And
that too. Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
oh, good. And for her to see the possibilities and what I've created, she would be just blown away, only because um, I was always pushing the envelope, not only with technology, but also with being a daughter, trying to
Uh-huh.
figure out different ways of doing things. Why does it have to be that way? And
Uh-huh.
I think she would be the type of person who would listen, foster it.
Mm-hmm.
And, with the metaverse being new, I think that's something that I would love to be able to share with her. So that's who I would
I,
interview.
I think that would be lovely. There's actually quite a few of our of my guests want to interview an
Mm,
ancestor, just because,
yes.
because the questions you would ask as you're older that in your 20s they were still around, you're too self-involved to understand those things. Uh,
Yeah.
I wanted at your parents came from the Philippines, right?
Yes, that is correct. They
Yeah.
came from
And
the Philippines.
how did you wind up landing in San Francisco and running your own business?
Ooh, that's a good story. So my parents at that time, this was during the 60s, they had an option to either immigrate to Canada or United States. And because most of my parents' relatives and friends from their hometown landed in San Francisco, it was a good idea for them to be among their friends and family.
Mhm.
So with that, my father loved. We lived in the Noe Valley in San Francisco, and if you know what that is, it's fairly sunny over there. San Francisco is known for being very foggy, but
Chilly and
my
foggy, yes. Yeah.
yes, and my father decided that he didn't want to live in the fog, and so that was like what my dad was all about. It's not necessarily force fitting yourself into a situation, it's find your situation, which was a good lesson for us
Ah, okay.
growing up. And both parents were very hardworking. And what was very important to them was education,
Hmm.
because education is a leveling field from their point of view, especially if you're an immigrant. Both parents were both professionals when they came to San Francisco. But, you know, again, education was very, very important. My father was a teacher. So as you can
Hmm.
see, that was very, very important to him.
Would they have ever imagined that you would be creating virtual reality?
Not at all. Not,
Because nobody ever
you
talked
know,
about virtual reality except like in the TV show The Jetsons and in science fiction, right?
yeah, the only thing that I could, what's interesting is that Star Trek comes to mind, when they
Hmm.
get um, transported from one place to another. And that was my explanation of what I do for my
Ah,
parents.
okay. Okay, so wait, so all right. I grew up watching Star Trek. Um, my parents thought I was crazy, but I loved it. When actually my German friends, they grew up with Raumschiff Enterprise, so Star Trek dubbed in German. Tell me, uh, how do you use Star Trek to explain what you're doing now? And then I'll get to the questions I'd actually planned.
Okay. It's because it's the imagination.
Mm,
Science fiction becomes science fact. And what I love about Star Trek is that, and other shows similar to that, is they broke beyond the expected.
mhm,
Who says it has to be that way?
mhm,
My favorite, I'll share my philosophy with you, and it's actually expressed in a joke,
mhm.
which is, how many art directors does it take to screw in a light bulb?
How many?
Does it have to be a bulb? So
Oh, I love it.
that
Does it have to be a light bulb? Right. Yes. Yeah.
that is the basis of my creativity. And I've always been that way. It's always, why does it have to be that way? Who says? So
Well, when I first met you, you were doing graphics, you were doing advertising campaigns. I remember you showed me a capability statement that you had done to apply for a corporate job, and I nearly fell over with envy. I thought, "Oh, how did she make it so beautiful? Oh my God." Mine was just the most I did was change a couple of fonts and change a little bit of color. And I just, it was so beautiful. So I'm in awe of people who can do graphics anyway, because that's something I have to outsource. It's not my genius.
Oh,
Really
you're
good
so
with
kind.
words, not so great with pictures. Invited you here to talk about the metaverse. And we hear Facebook rebranded themselves as Meta and whatever. But for those of us who are still confused, what is the metaverse? And why do we care?
Okay. Well, what's interesting is that technology keeps evolving.
Mm-hmm,
And the one biggest technology that's going to facilitate this is Web 3.0, which
mm-hmm,
just means it has more features, uh, different capabilities, right?
mm-hmm,
But imagine everything that we've done since the web, right? We've had the websites, we've had social media, now we have blockchain and all of that. And there's this need to have some connection with that, a place where you could facilitate that. And that's how you define the metaverse. The
mm-hmm,
metaverse, for instance, could be augmented reality, could be um, virtual reality. But one of the things that's happening now is that it's the immersive digital reality that Web 3.0 can facilitate, which means, like Meta, they're creating all of these avatars that look like you, that could be a caricature of you. So then now, where does that actually live and integrate with our everyday lives? Well,
mm-hmm,
it's this need to continually advance digitally. And the metaverse is a lot of things, but at the end of the day, it is a single shared, immersive, persistent 3D virtual space where we can experience life in different ways that we couldn't in the physical world. So that is what the metaverse is.
So so those of you listeners, if you are listening to the audio version of this, I highly recommend that you go back and check the video version, because Imelda has a background behind her from her augmented reality system platform creation. What do you
We
call it
call it a
and what
web
does it do?
application.
A web
I'm
application.
sorry.
Oh, good. I know that word. Okay. I get 30 years in opera. You spend a lot of time with technology and stories from a previous centuries. So I feel like I'm way behind catching up on this. So what is Augie, your augmented reality web application?
Oh, this is another good story. I'll tell you about the name in a second, but this was back in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
One of my clients, which was Accenture, said to me, because I did their previous event, and
Accenture
asked me,
is the large accounting company.
right,
Yes.
right.
Yeah.
Um, And so, what she wanted to do, she says, Imelda, and this is when this happened in March 2020. Everything was shut down.
Uh-huh.
And then so she said, I want to put an event together, but I don't want to use Zoom and I don't want to use Teams. Those are the two popular ones, at least
Microsoft
in
Teams. Okay.
the business
Yeah.
industry, right? And so I started to think of different ways that we can communicate. And so I looked at video games and I looked at how people are moving around. I looked at all the avatars. And I realized that it's not only augmented reality and it's sometimes virtual reality, it is a immersive digital reality, as you see behind me. So I'm actually augmenting your experience with AR, which is augmented reality, VR. And so a good friend of mine who is a fabulous branding professional, he helped me come up with the term Augie. So we wanted to make it friendly. We wanted to make it approachable. So Augie was a takeoff on augmented, and that's how we came up with Augie. And so that is the story behind that.
So, for our listeners, one of the reasons I wanted to get into this is because I do think that this is very much, 5 years from now, we're going to be taking this for granted. So, why do we need to know about the metaverse, and what do we need to know?
Yes. Okay. Do you remember when websites started to become part of your business world? All of a sudden, what
Yes.
is this website, right? So I liken that evolution to the metaverse.
Hmm.
There is what's, again, like I said, what's really facilitating this is the advancement of the technology. And what I mean by that is that now it's made so then your computer could go faster, you can stream faster. And so then with that, the metaverse came about uh, because actually the metaverse is something that somebody came up with in 1960.
Uh-huh.
And it didn't really come into fruition until now because it took time for technology to catch up. Can you imagine that? 1960, right? And so, with that, one of the reasons why I think the metaverse is going to be a big part of our life is that you can identify opportunities. Like, for instance, if you had a potential virtual real estate, you can now go into the metaverse, and I'm using that loosely, but you can go now online, have this experience, and go in and out of this real estate. Another thing too is that it really enhances the customer experience. And what I mean by that is that now you can enhance engagement and loyalty by being immersed in all of the functionalities, like clicking through, watching videos, as you can see here, my background. And also, it's improving operations. Now, imagine you can now do training worldwide out of one spot. And that's exactly what Augie is catering to as well. And one of the things that we have to also pay attention to is that this is so new. So we're going to have to figure out how to navigate regulatory and ethical issues, right? What how do you mitigate these issues? But really, one of the things that you need to know about the metaverse is just staying ahead of the competition. That is one of the advantages. Now, if I can go into your website, and if you're a product company and you can show your product not only as the features of the product, but its use by a click of your mouse, that is what digital reality is having it at your fingertips.
I think that's wonderful. I have to tell you, you will laugh at this, but when I first came to the San Francisco Opera in 1983, um, the big deal was that Hewlett Packard was looking for a tax deduction. And so they decided they were going to donate some computers to the San Francisco Opera, which was a nonprofit. And
Mhm.
we got one computer per room and one printer. And the job was, could this be useful in business? Would it be, could you use could you type on a computer instead of a typewriter? And I remember I'm old. I remember when that was the first time we'd ever had computers in an office saying, "Okay, we think we could do that." And even at that point, the printer, we used to have to produce documents on legal sized paper, and the printer couldn't handle it. You could physically put legal size paper into the printer, but the program was going to stop at the end of a 8.5 by 11 page. And we learned that you had to print it, then you turned the printer off, turned it back on again, and then it would print the whole 14 inches because the technology hadn't evolved yet to say, oh, people
Mhm.
have to print on legal size paper as well. So I make myself remember that so that I don't take it for granted all the things that you and I are talking on Zoom from two different continents and recording this. Uh, I remind
It's
myself of
funny.
that so I don't take it for granted.
Well, the secret to making your computer work again is turning it on and off. It has not stopped.
Yes.
There's just some compatibility. And just so you know, we do have something in common. I worked on the San Francisco Opera back in early or late 90s.
Mm.
Um, Back in the day. Yeah, so we did some work for them, and I could only imagine what Augie could do for the opera,
Oh, yeah.
reaching out to different types of audiences. And I think that's
Eliminate the
where
need for scenery if you have screens that are large enough um, to project the backgrounds on, etc.
yes,
So,
yes.
yes. What are the current pros and cons of the metaverse? The pluses and minuses, advantages and disadvantages.
Well, I think the first disadvantage is that a lot of people don't even know what metaverse is, right?
Mhm.
In the same way we looked at all new technology. We don't know how to use it. We don't know
Mhm.
when to use it. And more importantly, why would I need to use it, right? And again, there's always certain types of people that, the chasm between progress and is yay big, right? And there are people who are peering over the chasm and thinking, oh, should I jump over? And then you have those who just completely have jumped over because that's just what they do, right? So
Uh-huh.
again, one of the disadvantages is understanding it and getting people in it. But
Mhm.
what's interesting is that people don't realize that they're already in it, that they're already doing things what we define as metaverse. But now it's coming together, it's coalescing, it's finally saying, okay, this is what the metaverse does. Now,
Mhm.
of course, too much of anything is not great. One of the things, the Zoom fatigue that we have is very real, where you're in front of the screen all the time. It's that one-on-one eye visual that we have, not being able to move around and socialize. So what's happened with video conferencing is that the human need always evolve. And now,
Mhm.
because we are stuck in these boxes, what Augie does is that it takes you out of the box, right? And brings back the human aspect of socializing, interacting, and meeting. So that is one of the advantages is I've taken us out of these boxes, give you the ability to be mobile and have a social conversation. And this is scientifically proven it through research that when you're having a meeting, it's always good to have that social conversation in the very beginning because it does several things, right? It warms up the room, it helps you understand the boundaries, but also we're social animals.
Mhm.
And that is one of the advantages of Augie.
So many of the people I work with are working with teams in 4 or 5 different time zones. It was a group I
Mhm.
was part of, a presentation I was part of yesterday, where they were talking about how do you get up if you're in New Jersey, you get up early to talk to Europe, and then you take a nap, and then you stay up late to talk to Tokyo. So that is the reality for so many of us now. How does and I guess that is the metaverse, that we can do this in a
Mhm.
digital form, that, you and I can see each other and see, pretty good pictures of each other real time, live.
Mhm.
I know I have seen you move around in one of your, um, Augie platforms where you were walking around a room and I was watching. It was very cool. Kind of looked like the Salzburg airport, actually. It was very, very, very interesting, very cool. And you were explaining what it was for those of us who don't live in that world. It was very useful. I know you do webinars about Metaverse 101, et cetera, right?
Yeah, and there is a series coming up next month, and I'm happy to share it with you guys.
Well, we'll put a link to your website since this is an evergreen podcast. How can someone in business, if you're excited about learning about the metaverse, how can you leverage it so that you're making the decisions, not having decisions made for you? Does that make sense? So leverage
Right.
marketing, for instance, in the metaverse, marketing your company, marketing your product.
So if I understand you correctly, how does that work, or where does that?
Well, I've heard you talk about business owners who can leverage the metaverse for marketing.
Yes.
And if you're in a corporation, the metaverse is
Mhm.
here. We're going to be using it. How can we inform ourselves so that if there's an opportunity, you can say, oh, I can handle that project, for instance.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I totally understand that. I've actually had a conversation with Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
And what was interesting is that they wanted a training platform that they can use. Now, Amazon is worldwide. And so I would imagine that um, the metaverse is a place where you can do that because things can be digitally physical, they
Mm-hmm.
can be digitally uh, set up in a way where you're going through certain courses. So, so you could do it for training, you could do it for a team meeting as well. Now, a great example of how this was used was for Chevrolet. Chevrolet has a program for the historically Black universities and colleges. And these are college students that they choose every year to become, to understand how to be a marketing intern, but also understand business as well. And within Augie, this ran for 3 months. It gave them the ability to meet their mentors. It gave them the ability to interact with the AR functions within the metaverse, or in this case,
Artificial reality, right?
artificial reality.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this is imagination. We had a game show in the metaverse. We had balloons that pop that have questions on there. So you would walk to it. And what you do is that when you pop it, an answer will come up. But in the back end, we have artificial intelligence tabulating that. So the next question may be a different answer because of data that's being collected and what's important to the people that's engaging in those digital reality. But you can, it's the metaverse could be anything that you want it to be. Let's say you start with a customer.
Mm-hmm.
Let's make it so the customer is easy for them to navigate through your website, especially around purchasing, going to the cart, having, like, for instance, there is a company, I believe it's called Glasses USA, and you can purchase your glasses online. And what they could do is you choose a frame, you click on it, and somehow it centers it on your face so you can see what the glasses would look like on your face digitally. I mean,
That's
this is
cool. Yes,
how
right. I've heard of that. Yeah.
amazing. Yeah. So again, it's been around, but now it's actually getting definitions, which is very different from just some thoughts that we had about the metaverse.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of great things.
But what I love about you, Imelda, is that you are so creative and you have so many interesting ideas that you've been, for as long as I've known you, you've been ahead of the pack with creative ideas and doing cool, interesting things. Just for fun, what would be a dream project? Imagine I was representative of multi-billion dollar company and I've got money I need to use up and I say, "Okay, Imelda, I want to spend it on you." What would be a dream project for you?
Oh my gosh, education has always been my love, right?
Mhm.
And right now, we are actually talking to colleges about expanding their borders. Imagine being able to offer a country where they don't have access to the best of the best. And coming from the Philippines, my parents' hometown, what I would love to do, and there's so many like this around the world, parents' hometown back in their country where they may not be at the cusp of the digital age, but they have the internet. And
Mhm.
the internet is a great way to access education. And if I can deliver a worldwide university where students have access to not only education, but to the best of the best to expand their world. Can you imagine how many geniuses are out there in the world if they were just given the opportunity of education? And so my dream job is to build an Augie University where people around the world can learn and grow. That is my dream job.
Wow, Imelda. So that's going to be the thing to stop on there. I'm going to post information about your company and webinars and such on in the show notes. And whenever you are listening to this, I guarantee you will be able to learn from Imelda Alejandrino. She is one of the smartest, most creative people I know, and boy, it would be great to. If there's any way I could help with that, I don't have the bazillion dollars, but I may have it one of these days, and then I will help donate to your university. Thank you so
Oh,
much for having
Elizabeth.
been a guest.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I mean, just the fact that we're talking here about the metaverse is the best start. Let's just
Yeah,
start talking about it.
yeah, yeah. Well, I've learned a great deal, and I knew I would. That's why I wanted to get you onto the show. Thank you, Imelda. This has been Speakers Who Get Results. If you enjoyed today, please rate us, tell your friends, leave us a good review on Apple Podcast. That's the one that matters. And check out our YouTube channel, subscribe, tell your friends so we can have more people, fabulous people like Imelda, and tell the world about speakers who get results. This has been Elizabeth Bachman. I'll see you on the next one.
We have just concluded another great episode of Speakers Who Get Results with your host, Elizabeth Bachman. If you got value from today's episode, please feel free to share us with your friends and colleagues. You may also visit elizabethbachman.com for additional resources. Be sure to tune in every week for new episodes, and thanks for tuning in.